Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a very refreshing lunch. I promise the next session is going to have a lot more for you to digest, and whereas speakers will be sharing lessons they've learned while approaching clean energy transition in their respective states. So, states have a unique demand pattern and supply portfolio, with states taking various trajectories to achieve India's 500 gigawatt non fossil fuel based target by 2030. It becomes imperative to understand how states are approaching this clean energy transition. This session aims to bring together key stakeholders from different states to share their insights, experiences, and learning. I would like to call upon stage our esteemed panel. Today we have with us Mr. Hansraj Verma. He will be joining us virtually. He is the Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Tamil Nadu. Mr. Verma is also the Chairman and Managing Director, Tamil Nadu Energy Development Agency. We have with us Mr. Shantanu Dikshit from Prayas Energy Group. Mr. Dikshit is one of the founding members of Prayas Energy Group and has worked on a range of power sector related issues from techno-economic, legal, and broader public interest perspective. We also have with us Mr. Ajay Kumar Rastogi, Chairman to the Sustainable Just Transition Task Force and Task Force on Green Hydrogen, Government of Jharkhand. Mr. Rastogi retired as the Principal Chief Conservator of Forest after serving for over 3 decades in key ministries of Forest, Climate Change, Land and Revenue in Jharkhand and Bihar. We also have with us in the panel Mr. R. Hari Kumar, Director of Energy Management Center, Government of Kerala. A certified energy auditor, Mr. Hari Kumar has more than 28 years of experience in the field of energy efficiency and renewable energy and is the honorary founder, General Secretary of the Society of Energy Engineers and Managers. Finally, I would like to welcome Ms. Varnali Deka. She will also be joining us virtually. She is the Deputy Commissioner of Nalbari, Government of Assam. Ms. Deka is an IS officer of the 2009 batch. She has previously served as Deputy Commissioner, Golpara, Golaghat, and Barpeta districts of Assam, besides heading flagship missions like Assam Skill Development Mission, Assam State Rural Livelihood Mission, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana as Mission Director. Welcome, Ms. Deka. The session will be moderated by Mr. Bharat Jairaj. And Bharat is I missed giving his introduction in the first session, so I would actually like to introduce him here. So Bharat is the Executive Director of Energy Program at WRI-India. He also leads WRI's Energy Governance Practice and serves as UNDP's Global Advisor Board on Energy Governance. I would request Bharat to take us into the session. Thanks.
Thank you, Bhagisha. I'm also very glad to have on the panel with me here Mr. Rastogi and Shantanu. We'll be joined by Dr. Hari Kumar in a few minutes. And I'm also very happy to see Mr. Hansraj Verma and Madam Varnali Deka on the screen. I think all of us can see you. Thank you so much for joining us virtually. This session is to understand a little more about how states are approaching the clean energy transition and to look at what are the lessons and experiences. We will have this session will go on for 90 minutes. And the underlying assumption, as we heard this morning during Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad's keynote address, as well as the comments made by Mr. Amitabh Kant, that overall, at the national level, we have targets, we have goals, but the way to get there will differ and depend on where states are today. And in a sense, each state will have to carve its own way and own pathway, while of course the national policies and goals and directions will remain critical in terms of showing us what direction. So I'll get us started by, I'm going to start by asking Mr. Hansraj Verma a very sort of straightforward question. Really an opening statement from you, Mr. Verma, 2 or 3 key observations from Tamil Nadu. What is Tamil Nadu doing about the clean energy transition? If you can take maybe 5 minutes to outline some of the key initiatives.
As you mentioned in opening remarks, Bharat, every state have to carve out their own pathways for energy transition. Now, let me tell you the example of Tamil Nadu. This energy transition of Tamil Nadu is linked to its competitiveness of the state as a manufacturing hub. The state, is very, very strong on the RE, solar, wind, both offshore, onshore, wind, hydropower, biofuels. Now, India has announced its goals as to be a net zero by 2070. We're very confident Tamil Nadu will reach this much before that. And how is energy transition going to impact the state's competitiveness? So let me give you a perspective from the industrial point of view. Today we have several non-tariff, non-trade measures coming into play on the world market, whether it's the CBAM, cross-border adjustment mechanism of the European Union, whether scope standards or the worst sustainability standards, or the business responsibility sustainability code of the BSC. Industry will have to lead the charge in taking up energy transition. Now, this energy transition will have several parameters. First, basics. We have to focus on the MSMEs. MSMEs are the backbone of the industrial development of any state, and they'll need a lot of hand holding, guidance on this energy transition. It starts with very, very simple steps. We need low cost, homegrown solutions for the MSMEs. We need to start with basics of energy efficiencies. Start with the basics of Industry 4.0, by which they improve their production processes, assembly line processes, by which the consumption of the energy, the fossil fuels comes down, their carbon footprint reduces. Every industry must be sensitized and made aware that what is their specific power consumption vis-a-vis the competitors on the world stage. And what we're looking at is positioning India, particularly Tamil Nadu, as the manufacturing hub of the world, a hub powered by green power. So all the MSMEs must be made aware what is the specific power consumption of their specific products, whether it's a nut or bolt or a high-end aerospace product or a textile product, vis-a-vis its competitors. Start getting your specific power consumption down. Start promoting energy efficiencies measures on one hand. Start absorbing the green energy, the solar, and the wind in your production processes. Now, Tamil Nadu, with its very, very unique strength of being very, very strong in solar, wind, hydro, biofuels, will be in a position to provide RTC power. That is the key, round the clock power for manufacturing. And this is what is going to be the key competitive advantage of Tamil Nadu. So, Tamil Nadu is well positioned to lead the energy transition and position Tamil Nadu as a state which has got a very unique advantage on the competitive landscape of the manufacturing world on the world stage. So these are my opening remarks, Bharat.
I thank you so much for those comments, and particularly, I think, outlining the energy efficiency role, which often gets missed out whenever we talk about the energy transition. Usually, we jump straight into issues of renewables. So, very happy that you brought that and underlined that. Now, I'd like to turn to Mr. Rastogi. Jharkhand is a very, very different state as compared to Tamil Nadu, and and also the first state in India to establish a just transition task force, a sustainable and just transition task force, of which Mr. Rastogi is the chairman. So, from your perspectives, what is Jharkhand doing and thinking about in terms of the energy transition?
Thank you, Bharat. What Mr. Verma has said and what you have said, Jharkhand has totally a different context, because if you look at our energy mix, it is mainly fossil fuel. It's about now 88% energy comes from fossil fuel, and more so CPSUs plays a major role in energy production, energy supply in the state. See, our challenge in energy transition is much different because the way Jharkhand has developed, because it is one of the most mineralized state. Industrialization is in around development, harvesting mineral and processing of minerals only. It's very energy fossil fuel intensive industries has come up in Jharkhand. The extent is so large that 18 districts out of 24 they are consuming fossil fuel. So extent is much wider, and energy transition is going to be much different because the ecosystem which has developed in Jharkhand is based on fossil fuel. So attaining net zero is not only the state, the CPSUs has to come together and we have to achieve the net zero target for the state. And the state has constituted this task force uh, to understand because our impact is different because three-fourths of the population and the ecosystem which is there is going to impact on the livelihood of the people. How do we transit from fossil to non-fossil? RE potential, as far as utilization of RE potential, Jharkhand state has come out with the solar policy in 2022. We have big targets of 4,000 megawatt, and now instead of targeting on land base, we are trying to target even in command area. DVG is also trying in Jharkhand to tap floating solar power because that's a huge potential available with Jharkhand because DVC has also 3 command areas in Jharkhand. Second key will be when coal companies started, their abandoned mines, so-called abandoned mines, how to reutilize, how to repurpose those areas and can be put to use. That is also going to be a challenge. We have started working upon it. And energy efficiency, of course, is going to be the key because Jharkhand consumes a lot of fossil energy in hard to abate industry. So, how do we transit from fossil extensive industrialization to non-fossil based industry stabilization? How do we create greener economy? Because entire value chain is available in Jharkhand, whether it is the raw material, whether it is the network, whether it's a question of creating a new environment, industrial environment in the state. How do we promote that? How do we create greener job in the state? Because only capacity building is not going to work because you have to create that kind of a job in the state. So it is understanding transition in totality, which is going to be the key for Jharkhand. And we are trying to focus because our focus is on coordination with central government CPSUs because Coal India has 3 companies. Now NTPC has also started mining in Jharkhand. And electricity production is mainly with NTPC and DVC. They are also CPSUs and state-owned thermal power plants. One is coming up. So how do we transit? That is going to be very important. And decarbonizing industry, steel. Basically, we have a lot of crude steel industry in our state. So energy efficiency and greener steel, how we can produce greener steel, whether it is the state to state, neighboring state, do we create some utility that green energy is produced somewhere and hydrogen is produced in the state? Because Jharkhand is an ideal state for pump storage because you need RTC, as you mentioned, Mr. Verma, you need round the clock power in the state for industrialization. So it is a question of regional cooperation also. We are trying to explore how we can coordinate, how we can facilitate that. So key is create RE and decarbonize industry, because if we had to bring down the carbon footprint in the state, the key is going to be for the state decarbonize industry and create a capacity. I think biggest challenge in the states, what I see, the capacity is not there. in the state. So how do we create that capacity? How many people understand what is transition? We always talk in the conferences, in the seminar, but what about when implementation will start? Because it is going to happen in the state, and the state needs to carve out their own trajectory, their own path, and their own timeline, because every state will behave in a different way. So we are trying to assess, and I think that's going to be the key, that understanding and create a capacity within the state, taking stakeholders on board. Their capacity is more important, because I feel that creating alternative job is important, but if implementer, their capacity is not there, technical know-how is not available, they are not able to understand transition, I think we will create a problem, we will not find a solution. So we have to create a capacity and capability within the state, because as you rightly said in morning, Mr. Amitabh Kant has said, every state has to find out their own ways, because Tamil Nadu will behave in a different way, Jharkhand will behave in a different way, even neighboring state, I say, in West Bengal will behave in a different way for energy, because their energy demand is different, our energy demand is different, the topography is different, and various other factors like laws, various tenancy laws, they behave in a different way. So we have to work differently and try to find out a different solution. That's what we are trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rastogi. I think that important point you made about that it's not just the power sector, but recognizing that even the industry that is in Jharkhand has come because of the abundant fossil fuel. And so the transition really is not just about the power sector, but really about the whole of the economy and the state and the several thousands of families that are dependent on them. And the other important point you've reiterated is human capacity, and how there is just a stronger need to continue to focus on that. If I can now turn to Madam Varnali Deka, Assam has recently taken very aggressive steps towards renewable energy, but at the same time, there have been, I think, issues, with respect to broadly the Northeast still struggling with some parts of energy access, and so on, not necessarily at the household level, but more at the sort of institutional level and so on. So, what are the steps that what are the steps that Assam has been taking towards towards the clean energy transition?
Yeah. A very good afternoon to all present here. And yes, this is a very pertinent question, especially for a state like Assam. Am I audible? I hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you well. Yes.
Okay. So this is a very pertinent question, because in recent times, the state has been very aggressively moving towards renewable energy. You may perhaps be aware of the RE policy 2022, where the state has set a target of 1,200 megawatts till 2027. And if you're aware of the demography or the size of Assam, this is a very big target for a state like Assam. The state government has also introduced installation of another 1,000 megawatt plan on government lands in the recent budget. And with this also, the state government would like to contribute to the nation's 500 gigawatts target. Additionally, Assam is the entry point to the entire Northeast region, and besides being the gateway to the broader Southeast Asia, to the connect to Southeast Asian countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, and so on. So the government has been very keen to welcome new technologies, to welcome new manufacturers in a broader, in a broader milieu, in a broader ecosystem. The industry policy, ease of doing business, all of this has been really revamped to enable more and more manufacturers, more and more industries to come into the state. And since I am working at the grassroots level, I'm working as a district commissioner in a district. Another thing that I can say, and besides, I've really been working in some of the most backward districts of the state, of the country. the awareness about renewable energy in the community has been immense. So, in a number of cases, I see that at the community level, at various community institutions, people are trying to set up solar energy. So, overall, the steps that the state has been taking, right from the community level up to the government level, have been phenomenal. And I would also like to mention about the biofuel plant, the biofuel generation plant, which has been set up by Moligar Refinery, which is one of the largest in the country.
Right. Thank you so much for that, and also for underscoring that these issues are not just at the sort of state level, really, but they translate to um, the sub state level, including the districts and so on. And actually, a good segue to move to Kerala, where a lot of the efforts have also been at the local self-government level. So, Dr. Harikumar, I just sort of broadly two or three observations of what is Kerala being doing towards the energy transition. And you, of course, have a vantage point being, of course, director of EMC, but also previously in ANERT. And so, if you can share some of your observations on what Kerala is doing towards the energy transition.
See, after hearing my good friend from Jharkhand and I think from Tamil Nadu, I feel with Kerala having some disadvantage, we are in a position of having some blessing in disguise, because we are an industrially backward state. We do not have steel. We have one fertilizer, we have one cement, we have one chloralkali, we have one refinery, we have one shipyard. Like that, sample mein, we have one industries. And whatever energy we generate within the state, 100% is renewable, because we do not have petrol resources, we do not have coal resources, we do not have LPG, LNG, all sorts of we do not have. And we get 70% or 73%, 70 to 73% of our electricity from outside. Therefore, if the people like WRI can help us in having some good procurement, green procurement policies in the state, I think Kerala stands very much in the higher level to go for 100% renewable. We need not generate all our energy internally, though we have plans to go for floating solar, we have plans to go for hydrogen as a next fuel, etc. But in the immediate future, if good financial engineering we can do and get some help in global in green procurement practices and policies, I think Kerala, and probably because of that, the government of Kerala have made 2050 as the target to have carbon neutrality, ahead of India government's target of 2070. Having said that, our main focal or main energy, I would not say guzzler, but energy consumption points are in the building sector. We consume about 55% in the residential buildings. We consume about 15% of electricity in the commercial buildings. Both put together, it will be two-thirds of electricity going to the residential sector. Therefore, we have started in a big way the rooftop solar. We do not have land area also to go for ground mounted solar. Our largest solar power plant is maximum of about 90 megawatt or 92 megawatt. So we are going for in a big way in rooftop solar. And the advantage is that probably, as my understanding is that the utility is quite contrary to many other states. The Kerala utility, which is still in a bundled form, we are not unbundled. It is in a public utility. Though we do not have a private utility. We encourage net metering, and so the rooftop solar, going for rooftop solar is a if you take the ease of doing business in the state, we have a good ecosystem for that. Now, having said that, I think Kerala also has another advantage of going to energy transition in terms of going forward with electrification in a big way. Because now when people are having rooftop solar, we advocate that your return on investment goes up if you integrate that rooftop solar not only for your lighting and air conditioning and ventilation needs, but you integrate with your electric vehicles and your electric cooking. Therefore, there is a big market for electric cooking and electric vehicles also in the state. But there are certain challenges for that, which, if time permits, I will come to that a little later. And in electric vehicles also, see, Kerala, we do not have, as I told, we do not have many good industries, and money amount is also, fund is also a shortage. Because of that, we do not give any subsidy. Even then, without subsidy, Kerala stands number one in the country in terms of two-wheeler electric population. And four-wheeler also, we are not, I think maybe within the first five, we should come. We give incentive in terms of infrastructure. We have 700 kilometers of one stretch, and 200 kilometers breadth. It's a small state. So in 700 kilometers, if you travel, you take your Trigore or 200 kilometers, it gives, you take your Kone, which gives 300 kilometers. Every 150 kilometers, we have a public charging, fast charging station. Therefore, the anxiety also is taken into. So we give the consumers infrastructure in terms of electric vehicle charging points, but we do not give them any subsidy or incentive as a financial thing. There, therefore, and as you have rightly pointed out, you go to any local self-government institutions in the state. We have got 1,000 plus, including Gram Panchayat, block, corporation, municipalities. You can take a chair and talk to them on carbon neutrality, or then they will really understand, and they will really engage with you in the discussions. So, a very environment conscious climate with the politicians, with the bureaucrats, we have created. But probably in some extent it may be superfluous, but and there are certain challenges also, again, in terms of we have got a lot of action plans, how to translate those into reality. That's a challenge of that maybe I will speak a little later. So there is all good chance that the time is ripe for Kerala to take as a case study, maybe with WRI also, and go for carbon neutrality. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harikumar. I'll now turn to Shantanu. Shantanu, you've had over 3 decades or so of experience in the energy sector in India. What are your observations? What are the trends? What are states doing that is working well? Where is it working well, and why do you think it's working?
Thank you. So many questions rolled into one. So first of all, thank you for giving this opportunity to share some thoughts with all of you. And I will also take this opportunity to share some of the recent work that we are doing, which is quite closely linked to the question that you asked. Prayas, along with WRI and CPR, we are undertaking one sort of project to have very detailed view at what states are doing in terms of energy transition activities. We are looking at 10 states. In each state, we are looking at about 11 different themes. And across these 11 themes, we are covering more than 2,000 data points. And what we mean by themes is we are looking at different elements of transition which states need to work on. Whether the state has kind of a vision for transition, whether state is looking at meeting the government of India's norms for RPO, how state is dealing with issues of financial viability of the distribution sector, how state is looking at managing their coal based capacity. Because as sort of we just heard from earlier speakers, each state is unique in terms of their energy mix, their demand patterns, and their opportunities for energy transition. And we all know that energy transition is far more complex and challenging topic. But one sort of good thing that came out of this whole sort of exercise when we looked at these 11 states was each state is doing something very unique and very innovative in the context of energy transition, which is more suitable for that particular state. And those are the kind of examples that many other states can learn. And that's the advantage I think India has in terms of having this number of states doing their own initiatives, trying to find out way in terms of their own context. And that's a big learning that comes out of this. I can sort of give examples of each state how they are doing things innovatively. Maharashtra, there is example of solar feeders. There are states which are doing very innovative solar rooftop policies. There are states which are really focusing on managing their coal fleet in a much more efficient manner. There are states which are trying to look at tariff. There are states which are trying to address the issue of subsidy by having lot more subsidy burden being taken over by government. So I think there are enough sort of examples across states that we can point out to. But there is one flip side to that, that also I want to highlight, and that is there is no one state which we can point out as the state which is doing all right things. If there are certain states which are having some kind of long term policy or vision, they are lacking in terms of on ground implementation. There are some states which don't have such a clear policy, but if you look at their actions on ground, they are doing phenomenal work. So I think the challenge is how can we bring together these different experiences from different states so that each state is able to sort of look at transition in a much more holistic and integrated manner. That's the major sort of lesson from this exercise.
Right. Thank you for that reflection. And I think one of the key things that came out from all five responses is the need for this more integrated approach. That while the entry points may be different in different states, eventually we are going to need sort of an effort that actually brings many of these ideas together, and with some things being non-negotiable. For instance, energy efficiency needs to receive priority no matter where, some amount of renewables. And I was really struck by the example that Dr. Harikumar gave, because I was in Kerala earlier this year, a few weeks ago actually, and I did see firsthand the number of public charging facilities for vehicles. Even though I didn't see that many vehicles, but that the infrastructure is in place is always a good sign, because then it's more likely that people will purchase the electric vehicles, because the charging infrastructure is already in place. So that integration with cooking, with vehicles and so on, and also the comment you made, Shantanu. So with that, let me sort of switch to the second part of this session, and that's really to ask, is everything really that good? Or what is it that's preventing states from, like Shantanu said, there's no one state that's actually able to do many of these things. Some states are doing some things, and there's definite positive stories there. But what's holding states back, and what are the sort of one or two key challenges or barriers that states are facing, and who needs to do what in order to address this? And if I can perhaps go in that same order and start with Mr. Hansraj Verma. Oh, again, we don't seem to be able to hear you.
Yeah, Bharat, okay now?
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Let me start my second response, starting with the observations of Ms. Rastogi and Ms. Deka from Assam, Deputy Commissioner. See, we are all speaking about integration, sharing of best practices, common platform. I'll tell you one platform that is available which can translate the deliberations of such seminars into actionable points at the field level. And that platform is COSI DC. It is the confederation of all state finance corporations across the states and the state industrial investment corporations. I am the All India President. Just 2 days back, I was in Assam. I had a very good interaction with their MD of the Assam Finance Corporation and the Joint Secretary Finance, Laya Madhuri. Now, Assam is the gateway to Northeast. Today, there is a huge focus on the Northeast for development. Every department in the federal government has got a mandate to spend 10% of the budget in the Northeast. But challenges are there. So just take energy transition. We need to have a common platform where the best practice of the states are shared among all the other states. If each states keeps doing their own thing, then you will have, equity will not be there and uneveness will be there. Every state has got unique strengths. Like Mr. Rastogi was mentioning, they are very strong in pump storage. Now, Government of India has told pump storage can come anywhere in India. The interstate transmission charges have been waived for a certain period of time. Andhra has taken a big lead in pump storage. Around 30 projects are under consideration there, few on fast track construction. Why can't Jharkhand do that? Take up pump storage, partner with states like Tamil Nadu, Telangana, or Maharashtra. Use the pump storage as green batteries. Use them for grid balancing. Move the power across India. So the time has come now for all the states to form partnerships where the unique strengths of the state are leveraged across India. Tamil Nadu is strong, very strong in wind. Now we're going to have the auctions for the offshore wind coming in December. About 20 megawatt, 20 gigawatt. It's not a small number. Is going to be auctioned. So these are the trends Tamil Nadu has got. Now Tamil Nadu will excess of energy. The challenge for Tamil Nadu will be grid balancing. How do we absorb this excess RE energy in the grid? Keep the grid stable. How do we get the green batteries, the pump storage projects for grid balancing? Some projects we can do in Tamil Nadu. Some we can have partnerships like states like Jharkhand, we can have partnerships. So for all the states, grid balancing, grid management is going to be a key challenge as we progress towards RE and energy transition. Second, I keep telling at all the fora that you have to take the end users, that is the MSMEs. You may have a big policy, big strategic vision is there, but unless you take the MSMEs on board, who are the key of the industrial development, they have to come on board. We have to handhold them with low cost, homegrown solutions for them. Right, starting with energy efficiency to absorption of green energy. This will enable them in the energy transition. Capacity building, skilling of jobs is going to be next challenge. We at Tamil Nadu, the Tamil Nadu Industrial and Corporation has entered an MOU with the Indian Wind Turbine Manufacturing Association. Given the huge mandate of 50% of India's energy mix by 2030 to come from RE power, there's going to be a huge requirement for wind and solar components. Each turbine has got 9,000 components. Majority of them will be made by the MSMEs. And Tamil Nadu is going to be the leader in that in manufacturing. For that, we need to create the ecosystem for the green jobs. So skilling, capacity building is another challenge you have to start planning today. You may have targets, but unless you have the skilled manpower to enable you to walk on that transition pathway, the glide pathway, will have challenges. So in summing up again, the challenges for the states are partnerships. Leverage your strengths, take the MSMEs on board, use platforms like COSI-DC for sharing the best practices and getting the state finance corporations and industry investment corporation on board, so that this platform enables the states to share the best practices and come on board, whether on capacity building, skilling, or the latest trends in the RE sector. Grid management is another challenge which states have to come together. Today, our grid is in one common grid is there. How do we ensure that as transition takes place, RE transition takes place, our grids are stable, strong, and we are able to absorb every unit of the RE energy we generate. Every unit of RE energy is national asset. We should be able to optimally capture that asset, take it to the grid, and utilize for the national interest. And again, for all states, the imperative is going to come again from the international trends. It is just not having a net zero target. Unless you are on board on the energy transition, the state's competitiveness will be hampered. If India has to be competitive on the world stage, and we at Tamil Nadu firmly believe that this is India's century, India is going to emerge as the manufacturing hub of the world. To capitalize on this very, very available opportunity in green energy transition is going to be there, and that is going to be leveraged by states like Tamil Nadu, again in partnership with all the states across India, using their respective strengths for taking this power. Thank you.
Excellent comments. I particularly like the the point you made about the partnerships between states. I think to some extent these were happening and of course continue to happen on power procurement, but this idea of also combining on storage and to think a little more of the point you just made about excess RE capacity in some states, and then we heard Dr. Harikumar talk about how Kerala is dependent on buying power from outside. So more of these partnerships, and not just across states, but also across industry and best practices and so on. And also for bringing up that point on grid balancing, I think one of the key challenges. Um, I'll come back to some more of the points you made, but let me now turn to Mr. Rastogi.
I fully agree what Mr. Verma has said, and we have started dialogue with our neighboring states, because the key is every state is unique in the topography, and we need to partner with the neighboring state. If energy transition, we have to make it as a successful story, because eastern and central states will definitely behave in a different way than the other states. So I totally agree with Mr. Verma's comment. Uh, See, the problem from Jharkhand is a little more complex. We are blessed with 30%, more than 30% forest area. Presence of central units like Coal India and other companies are much, much more than any other state. 25% land is available, 25% is available for settlements, for industrial development, and remaining is around 45% is almost for agriculture purposes. So to earmark land for for RE purpose, especially for solar, I think what best could be for Jharkhand, and what is limiting right now is, so far it has been limiting that availability of large chunk of land, because the land settlement in such a way, the low-lying areas are agricultural land, uplands are mainly a forest land, and the middle land is that we usually call as stand land, or there's a one crop which is rain fed, because it is a contour area. That was the limiting one, but now like Coal India has estimated around 300 square kilometer area is going to be abandoned, because already either the mines are closed temporarily, or mines are not working, or they are not economically viable. So that is the area Government of India is also focusing for repurposing those areas, not only for RE, but for economic development. So policy initiatives are there, but because now Government of India has also started thinking that how do we repurpose these areas, how we can create a different economic environment in those areas, what will be the best use. So that limiting factor, I think, within coming 1 or 2 years is going to be over, because Government of India started. We are also started working uh, new economic development plan for the district from the energy transition point of view. Second is, as I said, states. The problem in eastern central state is the capacity to understand, capacity to absorb, and capability to deliver. Because when you see center of excellences, they are not in the eastern part of the central part. So some center of excellence, like maybe a platform where you can share knowledge, because seeing is the believing, that what Tamil Nadu is doing, what Karnataka is doing, what Kerala is doing. That hydrogen hub, when it was announced in Kerala, 2 hydrogen hubs are announced. So we are the consumer, but Kerala is taking a step ahead. So immediately it stuck to our mind why we can't act as a create a hub in Jharkhand, because neighboring states there is a consumer available. We have environment, but only lacking is, like Mr. Verma said, grid stability. How do you get RE if you have to create green hydrogen for hard to abate industry? then you need to have RE. That comes from neighboring states, cooperation with neighboring state or collaboration from the neighboring state. So I think for energy transition in this coal belt in eastern and central India will be the collaborative approach and utilizing strength of each of the state. That is going to be the key. And what is limiting for Jharkhand? Policy initiatives are there. Second could be that how come this money is going to come from? That's a big challenge because the targets are very high. And as I said, our dependence on fossil fuel is very, very large. We do not have wind energy at all. Almost it's negligible. So we have to depend only on solar or biofuel. We have started assessing biofuel potential. And the problem with biofuel, biomass, it is available, but supply, assured supply is the problem. Because if you start asking investor to come, because no development will take place from the public money. It has to be a private partnership and economic viable. But question comes, supply chain. Where is that supply chain? How do you assure that supply chain is available? So these are the keys and these are the limiting factor, and we have started assessing that how this biofuel, because a lot of biomass is available and Jharkhand is suitable for growing high calorific value biomass. But the problem is how do you channelize that? So we are looking for a model. We are trying to work upon a model where we can channelize that. How do we create a value chain for that? So I think rest I agree with Mr. Verma, the grid stability, how that electron is going to be, any electron, green electron, to be utilized, no doubt. So if we have to give any concession or any collaboration is required, I think we are willing to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Rastogi. If I can turn to Ms. Deka now. You spoke about some of the positive efforts being taken in government of, by the government of Assam. If I could ask you to also reflect on one or two of the key challenges that you see, and as I requested, what needs to be done and by whom to help address this?
Say that Verma sir, additional CS Verma sir and Rastogi sir, they have, given a very broad, approach to the whole issue and a lot of understanding on the challenges at every point, be it horizontally or vertically. And certain of the issues, in a broader frame for a state like Assam, one issue would definitely be capacity building. How do we transition sustainably is another point of concern. Of course, if one is familiar with the climatic conditions of the northeast, there are issues in terms of use of solar energy, in terms of use of wind energy. And I would also like to share some findings. I am actually a part of the Vision 2047 group. We are working with Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala of IIT Madras, and this group is trying to fructify the Vision 2047 and net zero at 2070. So as a part of this working group, there are certain findings or certain understanding that I would quickly like to share a few points. In terms of greenhouse gas generation, India ranks third in the world. And some very interesting facts and figures, I think most of us, since this is primarily an energy-based discussion, would be aware that even as late as 2018, the percentage share of air conditioning in Indian homes was only 8%, but this is likely to rise to 50%. So how do we, address all of these things? Even in Assam, earlier we would see that one did not actually require even fans. I remember as a kid during vacation, we did not even need fans. Now we cannot, it has become very difficult to survive without air conditioning. So how do we address these challenges? And a very critical link in this chain is that the cost of non-renewable energy generation in many parts across the world has actually gone down. If you weigh renewable and non-renewable. Like fossil fuels, if you weigh that against say wind energy, today the cost of renewable is probably lower. But if you look at it in terms of energy generation, renewable energy in India still falls very short. And why is this? This is because for something like coal, the capacity utilization could be as high as 90%, whereas for solar or wind energy, in terms of proportion of the installed capacity, it could just be, say, 20 to 30%. This is because of the very nature of these energies, because we do not have solar or we do not have wind power available across the clock. So today, probably in terms of research, in terms of extension, we also need to focus on energy storage. And I would again like to end on a very positive note, which is that be it the government of Assam, governments across the country, Verma sir and Rastogi sir have already talked about the differentials in state, but these are areas that states are already focusing on. And also in terms of getting big industrial groups, big commercial complexes to adopt renewable energy. So across the board, we can see that change in thinking that is happening. And we also need to focus on research and on scalability of these research initiatives to the broader level, to the government level. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for bringing that up. Can I ask you to just reflect one additional point? I think you hinted at it when you said that there are specific challenges with solar and wind in Assam. Do you want to take 30 seconds just to describe what those specific challenges might be for Assam?
I do not have the exact technical figures right now, but if you look at the kind of solar energy availability in states like Assam or in the northeast, if you look at our climate, the pattern of climate, say the hours of rainfall in certain when we have certain months that we have very heavy rainfall, when solar probably does not become technically that feasible. The weather conditions are very erratic in a state like Assam. So for in terms of weather conditions and current technology that is available, it may not be as easy for the northeast or for Assam to derive the as a proportion of installed capacity, deriving that much of available capacity from the installed capacity as it may be in places with other kind of climatic conditions.
Fair enough. I think that important sort of connection between extreme weather events and the suitability of specific technologies and specific geographies is an important point. And I think also Mr. Verma did talk about it when he said that Tamil Nadu was exploring now offshore wind, and again, and I think he said 20 gigawatts of new offshore wind. Thank you for that. Can I now turn to Dr. Hari Kumar? One or two challenges that that Kerala faces, and how can those be overcome?
See, one of the challenges we face is the very low investment from the government in the power sector. Now, Kerala is investing a lot in our education, health, public works, infrastructure. But I would not. I am little shy to say the number, so I will say very minuscule amount goes to the energy sector. It is not because we do not have the money, but it is because we are not able to convince the leaders on the socio-economic aspect of such investment going in the power sector. Now, I think a month ago, I got the chance to attend a Prayas organized workshop here in Habitat Center only. There also I told, we have, suppose you, the stakeholders in the power sector, if you see, you have a utility, KCB, we have ANERC, which looks after renewable, we have EMC, which looks after energy efficiency, we have Inspectorate, which looks after safety, we have Power and Infrastructure Finance Corporation, looks after finance. Not even a single social scientist you can find in all these 5 institutions. We believe that engineers can do this job very well, but as an engineer, I know very well our limitation. So somebody has to help us in framing the socio-economic impact of our. When we say rooftop solar 1 kilowatt, as an engineer, I will say 4 units will come per day. 100 square feet is required per kilowatt, but I am not able to convince in a better way to the politicians, to the leaders, what sort of socio-economic impact it gives the society, and therefore they will see the investment. So that is number one. Nor even we are able to, we do not have a good DSM action plan or something like that, where we can get some money from the consumers, high-end consumers, or then do the DSM activities. That is also not there. Now, second challenge, which I would say that we do not have I would not say we do not have, or we are incompetent. We have got a lot of action plans prepared by many people, but we are incompetent to translate that action plan into reality. Probably we do not understand the language of that consultant, so that he will say a lot of things, but we are not able to translate into reality. Therefore, we want a hand holding, and to the really, what, say for example, my friend was talking about storage. Now Kerala, we have two, one is pump storage, or the battery storage. Now, if I want from 6 to 11, 5 hours of storage, whether peak pump storage, in back of the envelope calculation, pump storage is not economical. Can I go to battery energy storage with 40% VGF from the central government? Do I have a financial engineering plan for the for the utility to work on that? We do not have. Or see, PPP model, public-private partnership. We got a central PSU coming to the state, that telling that we will invest in your pump storage, but we told a big no, because we do not know whether to say yes or no. So we do not know the advantage of that. And he was talking about the capacity building. Even Kerala, the institutional capacity to address such macroeconomic policies are very, very weak, I would say. ESCO, we are talking about a lot of things in ESCO, but not even a single ESCO good project in Kerala has worked out. And EMC is willing to, I have told in Delhi itself, in some program, I have met some few ESCOs. I told them, you come, I am ready to guarantee your return if you invest in a government or a public sector or a cooperative sector project. I will take care of your return. That is, so risk is there. And behind the meter storage, see, central government is giving 40% subsidy to 3 kilowatt grid connected solar. Now, is it required? If you say, whether they have to give that subsidy for behind the meter or for grid connected, so such topics we have to. And for the e-cooking, and I talk about e-cooking, we are in a, we do not know whether to promote e-cooking, because Kerala households start electric cooking at 6 p.m. and ends at 10 p.m., which coincides with the peak load. And now itself, KCB is finding it very difficult and getting lot of pumping lot of money to get peak power. Therefore, we do not know whether e-cooking we have to promote, or we have to do a caution. So such type of studies, actionable, such type of action plan, which really we can implement, that is also lacking in a big way. Suppose we go to the four consultants, we do not have the money to share, to give them their honorarium. So that is a problem.
Thank you, Dr. Harikumar. Shantanu, you've heard from many of them now, and you've also observed many more of the challenges. But one specific question I wanted to sort of add to you is, some of these seem like sort of legacy issues, right? The energy transition, capacity building, or capacity issues in some states is not necessarily about the energy transition. I mean, it's not caused by the energy transition and so on. So how do you sort of see these different types of challenges, and what do you think needs to be done, and by whom, to help address both the sort of almost legacy issues and the sort of newer issues that are coming up as consequence of some of the transition related questions?
One of the big issue is how to manage integration of variable RE. For that, I'm sure each one in the room will have a list of 5 things that need to be done to manage RE integration, whether it is TOD tariff, increase storage, improve forecasting and scheduling sort of mechanisms, have better resource adequacy plans, implement those plans. When you are procuring wind and solar resources, do more efficient procurement in terms of not just look at the least cost procurement, but also look at profile of generation. So I think all of us know that these are, let's say, 5 or 6 things which are required for RE integration. Similarly, if we talk about the other side of transition, that is how to manage our coal generation fleet. We all again have solutions for that. Improve coal quality, how to reduce coal mining efficiency and bring down cost of coal, how to make coal more flexible, reduce emissions from coal. There is again list of 5 or 6 topics. I think so. The solutions are known, but we are not able to adequately implement those solutions, and the reason is the speed of change is far too overwhelming for state level utilities and entities. For last, let's say, between 90s to up to 2020 or so, utilities were grappling with traditional challenges. How do I meet my demand supply scenario? How do I ensure that my tariff I am able to increase periodically? So before they are able to solve these problems, there are these significantly additional demands on state level entities. And that's why the challenge of inadequate analytical capacity, inadequate implementation capacity are becoming more serious. And on top of that, there is another requirement of having to coordinate with multiple sectors. Because when we talk about energy transition, it's not just about electricity sector, it's also about skilling, is also linked to green jobs, also linked to industrialization policy, also linked to resettlement and rehabilitation, also linked to what we do when we try to move away from coal. So I think the whole complexity is quite overwhelming, and unless we really invest in state level analytical capacity and capacity to coordinate across different agencies and sectors, we are not likely to sort of solve this energy transition issue in a smoother manner. As we sort of just discussed, each state is trying to do certain things. So we are definitely moving ahead at a fast pace, but the end result might be quite chaotic unless we try to sort of bridge these gaps. So that's what sort of the experience of multiple states suggests.
Right. Thanks for that. I'm going to now open this to the audience. If you have questions for any of our panelists, please keep it short. Sorry, what? You have a question? Okay, please keep it short.
Okay, so my question was, as the waiver of transmission costs in renewable energy is said to be slowly phased out in the coming years, how do states like Jharkhand and Kerala see this affecting their procurement moving forward? Is this
Right. So your question was, as the waiver for transmissions across the states, right?
yeah,
as that
transmission
states-
costs for renewable energy,
for renewable
ICS
energy.
charges?
Yeah, I see. Okay, got
Yeah.
it. We'll take a few questions and then we'll come back. Yes.
I'm Joydeep Gupta from the third pole. I have a question for Ms. Dekar. What is Assam's plan for just transition? And my question to you is in the context of the closed mines in Margarita, which has been turned into a ghost town, and we have lots of complaints about people not having any alternate source of income.
Thanks, Joydeep. Yes.
Yes, I have a basic question that there's a talk about this green corridor regarding transmission and coordination between interstate coordination regarding this green energy. So why can't some of the states like Assam, etc., can work with other states which have green surplus green power and can I mean, for example, during deficit can coordinate so that they are able to manage their grid functionality with renewables. And my second part of the question is that there are in Europe, etc., for example, we are seeing a lot of traction as far as this carbon pricing is concerned, emission trading system. Why is it that in India we do not have that sort of mechanism so that these industries which are which are emitting so much of pollution can be taxed and can be slowly can be phased out? Thanks very much.
All right. Yeah, the question right at the back.
Thank you. My name is Nidhi Srivastav. I have a question specifically for Jharkhand and any other state as well, if they'd like to address. You mentioned that land is a big challenge in setting up of RE projects, especially large RE projects, and also repurposing of old mines for general, economy-based kind of projects. But are there any state plans that are for setting up of RE projects in these abandoned and closed mines, as well as decommissioned TPPs? Thank you.
Okay, maybe we should just hold off for now, and then I'll come back. I'll do one more round. Um, Madam Dekar, do you want to take that question specifically about just transitions in Assam and the closed mines in Margarita?
Yes, thank you so much. But since I'm working at the field level, I'm not really aware, and I'm not probably the right person to take this question or answer this question about any kind of energy transition plans in the mines. And when it comes to renewable energy plans of the state, this is available. The RE policy of 2022 is available in the public domain, and one could probably go through that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that. Mr. Rastogi, do you want to?
So as far as availability of land, as I said, it is a hindrance for large RE projects, because you know how much land is required to establish 1 megawatt of solar PV photovoltaic cell power plant. See, in 2022, our policy says JEREDA, now we started aggregating land through JEREDA, and 4 solar parks are coming. Then I said that we have a lot of dams. DVC has 3 big dams: Kodarma, Tilaiya, and Panchet. And Jharkhand state government has also a lot of water bodies, so that can be tapped. The problem is the land holdings are pretty small. Aggregating land holdings becomes very, very difficult. The land settlement in such a way, why it is difficult, that I was just trying to emphasize on that. Because the settlement, when it has taken place, uh, it is just like a honeycombing. It's not a compact patch which is available. So you can go for a smaller off-grid. That is possible. That is quite easily possible. But if you want to put a bigger park, if you want to have a 20 megawatt or 40 megawatt, then you need to aggregate land. And land acquisition, now it is categorized for solar park and utility parks that you can acquire under Land Acquisition Act. But Land Acquisition Act is a long drawn process, and you have to do very lot many things. Another could be the sharing, profit sharing. State government is thinking about how we can share the revenue generated. You need not to sell your land, no need to lease the land, because in Jharkhand, half of the area, even leasing is not permitted. Leasing of land is also not permitted. So how do we share that benefit? Acquiring land, EIA has to be done, then SIA has to be done. Then, it takes a lot of time to acquire land. So we are considering, and policy has already envisaged how we can acquire. So though, of course, we are talking, Coal India has also come out with a policy that they will be establishing 4,000 megawatt solar parks in entire country, not only in Jharkhand. DVC has around 2,000 megawatt, and majority of their catchment only it is in Jharkhand. So it will add to the state. Whether DVC does it or Coal India does it, it will be a part of the state GSG reduction in GSG emission. The energy will be available within the state. As far the question came from the right side, banning, as you said. See, banning any industry is not a solution. We have a lot of laws. We have a lot of law. It's about regulation. A regulator has to be, monitoring, and regulation is the key, and transparency in monitoring is the key. I think you can reduce. The problem is not that, where you have stacks. Problem comes that reliable data set is not available for MSME. How do you report that data? Because, it's very easier to say that you close that industry or you punish that industry, but where is that reliable data, availability of reliable data? Everybody knows is how do we work on availability of GSG emission data. So we need to create a data set first and validate it before moving into that hard section of closing an industry. And you have to educate them. And as Mr. Verma said, for MSME, you have to do hand holding that this is the solution available. It becomes economically viable for them to implement, to decarbonize them, to reduce dependence on fossil fuel. Because otherwise, the ultimate aim of the industry is to make certain profit. Once you make investment, it should be recoverable. So any kind of a hand holding in MSME sector is going to very, very important. And transparency in emission data is also going to be very important. I think I leave other questions for other panelists to answer. And Dr. Hari Kumar.
There was a question on transmission and renewables and all. See, we recently helped a chlor-alkali industry in the state who produces hydrogen as a byproduct. They produce 2.5 tons per day of hydrogen. To make it green, it is very easy. They have to procure the power green because their electrolyzer is the process, and now they are procuring coal power. And suppose you get green power, it becomes green hydrogen. So when we try to understand the cost aspect of that, he gets 5.5 rupees per unit electricity from KECB, which is 70% coal, 30% renewable. Now, if he wants round-the-clock RTC renewable energy power from the transmission, then normally the KECB, which is a utility, they impose some surcharges and things like that for their survival. It goes up to 1.5, and his cost will become 7 rupees. Therefore, but earlier it was 1 megawatt open access we used to give. Now it is 100 kilowatt open access we give for green energy. Now, adding to my concerns which I raised earlier, the utility is also not in a position to. There is no strategic document or a new business model how to see. Suppose when a lot of people go for solar, lot of high-end energy intensive industries goes for open access. Normally the utility have to pass on their O&M expenditure to the rest of the consumers, and the cost of rest of the consumers goes up. Now, how we are doing this just for this energy transition? So when more and more solar comes, the people down the pyramid, they are to those who are not able to put solar, they will be suffering for enhanced cost. So we do not have answers to such questions, to be frank. I think I will stop. Better stop here.
Shantanu, do you want to respond to just the question around what happens when this transmission waiver, this current waiver, what will the implications be for states that are currently not generators of renewables but buyer of renewables? And so what is likely to...
I think when this transmission waiver was considered, the cost of RE generation was quite different. Today, the cost of RE has gone down significantly. So our position on these waivers is gradually these waivers need to be removed. All services need to be charged at cost, and there could be other ways of meeting other social objectives. We shouldn't be making the same mistake that we did about cross subsidy, in terms of you sort of get locked into certain kind of mechanism, and then it becomes very difficult to come out of that. That we shouldn't do. And especially because RE, the cost has gone down significantly, and let there be price signals that RE will provide, because the next round of cost increase is going to be in terms of storage costs. So unless we are able to find a mechanism or a model where we start pricing RE plus storage in the right manner, the cost will keep on increasing, and then these kind of concessions are not going to be sufficient. So earlier we move away from this concession based regime for RE, better it's going to be.
Thanks, Shantanu. We'll take another round of questions.
Well, I'm Rishabh from Acme Group. Sir, in the session we talked about the net zero target by 2070, which every one of us knows. So my question is, how are states currently strengthening the GHG emission monitoring first? And there's the upcoming carbon markets seem like a suitable fit, which will help us in the longer journey.
Thanks.
Hi, my first question is for Shantanu. I mean, your point for the overwhelming of the state energy institutions is well taken, and I mean it has been recognized for long. I mean, you cannot expect much from the state institutions which have been engaged with the legacy issues so far. And so, are there any alternate institutional imaginations or which to tackle these challenges posed by energy transition? And my second question is for the panel as a whole. I mean, there has been a lot of I mean, everyone has spoken about pump storage and floating solar and all. So there, I mean, energy transition has taken our uh, um, uh, focus from of treating water uh, as a source for energy, rather, and but it has other competing uses. It might not be used right now for other purposes. Maybe in the future it might find the same water can find uses. So I mean, there have been examples of uh, a pump storage plant which could not be made operational because the water resources department never allowed it to operate. So I mean, how do what I want the opinion of the panel regarding this.
Thank you, Abhinav. Balwant?
Yeah, hi. Balwan Joshi from Idam Infra. I have two questions. First question is primarily for the state officials, but Shantanu, you also can answer. Again, building on what Abhinav said. In terms of the capacity building requirements and the analytical frameworks that are required at the state level, and the institutional capacity being less at the state level, I wouldn't like to get into the new imaginative institutional structures because it's actually extremely difficult to get any institution designed new and get it stabilized. It takes at least 10 years. At least that's what our experience says. So my question is that, has there any prioritization been done in terms of the capacity building requirement as well as the implementation of the analytical tools or frameworks? So has any state done any study or at least try to find out what they must do immediately in next say 1 year or 2 years? Okay. So that's the first question. The second question also to the panel, but more to Jharkhand, is that if you see the CA analysis in terms of the load generation requirement, what we see, and at the same time the announcements made by Power Minister, that we are going to add at least 50 gigawatt of the thermal capacity in next 8 to 10 years. Most of the models that have been carried out at the national level suggest the coal is not going to peak before 2032, 2033. So in such a situation, do you really see, I'm not on the GHG issues, I'm not on the climate change issue over here, but more on the impact on the state GDP, states employment related issues. Do you really perceive that there will be impact on the major coal producing states, say such as Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh? Thank you.
Thanks. Any further questions? Oh, sorry, I forgot you, Preeti. Here, Preeti.
Yeah. My question is to Dr. R. Harikumar. So you mentioned that the ESCO projects have not worked in Kerala. So I wanted to understand what are the risks and challenges faced by these ESCOs and the role that the government could play in mitigating those issues, considering the fact that the role that ESCOs could play in the energy transition.
Thank you.
My question is regarding this statement what Dr. Harikumar sir just mentioned. It's like when we are planning for something in the future, there is no surety whether the thing that we assume would be the same. So this is a very valid statement, but there are also some considerations that we can be taking from our side. For example, when Tangetco mentions that we need to add they are going to add 20 gigawatt solar with 10 gigawatt hour of storage by 2030. These things are not really shown in the capacity addition plan of Tangetco or anything else. maybe technically whether they are possible, they are feasible or not is one thing, but now given the financial circumstance of state owned utilities, these things can be better planned is what I am feeling. But is this the way, or let's learn from our experience kind of thing is the right way to go? Is it? It's my question, open for all panelists.
Right. Thank you. So should we, I think we'll close the questions for now and get, Mr. Rastogi, do you want to answer? There was a specific one for you. But you might also want to reflect on the other point on water.
Yeah. First of all, the gentleman asked about, adding additional 50 gigawatt. See, for any country, for any region to grow, energy self-reliant is going to be very, very important. And India has taken a stand that every country will decide its own energy mix. And coal is an important resource for us. What we need to do is we need to reduce the carbon emission of the coal. There are processes available by, control combustion and biological process where you can convert it into gases so that emission goes down. And as per the report of Coal India, the coal will peak around 2035 as today's prediction, because energy demand of India is growing by 3%. And with new economic development, it may even grow faster. How do you meet? We have seen a lot of changes even in Europe. Wow, this Russia and Ukraine war has changed the entire energy dynamics in Europe. The Germany has changed. So what we need to decide in energy transition, we need to be very cautious in deciding energy mix, and self-reliant is the key for any country, because we said that this is going to be the century for India. This is going to be, decade for India. Coming decades, 2 decades is going to be for India. But from where you are getting this energy? We are spending around $200 billion every year for energy import. Can India afford it? So this is a question. How do you reduce? Net zero doesn't say that you cannot emit. So how do you reduce how you, sequester? That is going to be very, very important. So this is one. Regarding water also, I can say every dam has a dad story. So that water it has to be there, because there are four gates when you look at any dam. When it is constructed, it is under sluice gate, and MFL and HFL. These are the four levels of there. So dead water has to be there in a dam. Agriculture department, when water commission was, in India, when water commissions were established, so it is clearly established how water can be utilized, how much is going to for industrial purposes, how is going to be for municipal purposes, how much it is going for agriculture purpose, how much is going to be dead storage. So availability of water is not an issue. And second issue is, when you see, when you install PV photovoltaic cell on land, the temperature goes up. So, and land is a resource. It should be treated as a resource. And water, if it is utilized, dead water surface, if it is utilized, I don't see, because I have read those, recommendations of water commissions, that how much every drop of water in Damodar Valley River Basin is accounted for, that how much percentage is going for which purpose. So when dead water is available, you see the command, you go to, that HFL and MFL, there is a difference of 4 meter. In a contour, 4 meter means a huge landscape which is going to be available. So this is one, and I think other panelists can be given an opportunity to answer others. Thank you.
Dr. Harikumar, there was a question of do states do GHG monitoring? And then there was also this question around, is there any sort of institutional focus on capacity building? Because some of these issues are, as we discussed, not entirely new. So on both those, if you have any thoughts.
So GHG inventory, to I would not say in a very meticulous or a full-fledged way, but to a good extent, the Department of Environment and Climate Change in our state is doing the GHG inventory of different economic sectors, and they are publishing reports also on the state action plan on climate change, where the GHG inventory is there. But whether it conforms to the published guidelines of scope 2, scope 3 emissions, I would say it needs some refinement on that. And the second question is on capacity building. See, capacity building, see, if you see the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, how it treats the capacity building of state designated agencies, for example, on the PAT scheme, they have put a PAT cell. They are giving some 2-3 people manpower. For when the energy conservation building code is announced, they have instituted ECBC cells in all SDAs. When the DSM program, they have helped the utilities with some manpower support to help them develop the DSM program. But still there is the gap has to be addressed. Even Bureau of Energy Efficiency or the MNRE will be able to see, when I was holding the director of the state nodal agency of MNRE. Long back, I was the project director. At that time, some 15 years back, there was a mandate that MNRE has put that there should be a post called energy economist in each SNA, at least one post. But now it is not there. So there is no energy economist in SNA. So such like that, if MNRE or Bureau of Energy Efficiency in the national level itself, they can mandate and they can help the state to have the one or two people to coordinate and then to get the services of the consultants, or put some cell and then do this capacity building. So in-house capacity building also will happen. Then ESCO, yes. See, I worked in the Asia's first ESCO about 30 years back in Bangalore. So I know the in and out of ESCO business also. So the ESCO require, when ESCO comes to play a role in energy efficiency improvement, definitely the project cost increases because they are taking the risk of that. Now, when the project cost increases, there could be a thinking that why we should give this to the ESCO. Now, the facility management system as people have come, service providers have come. Long before that, it was not there. Now, to a certain extent, minus risk, these people are taking care of the refrigeration, air conditioning, lighting aspect of that. Now, we need low-cost finance. So, if you see the housing boom in this country, 20 years back or 25 years back, it all started with when government of India through Reserve Bank and all, they started giving low-cost finance at 7% interest rate. Now we are talking about innovative finance scheme for energy efficiency projects for 20 years. My humble question is why we are not giving 7% loan through all the banks. The energy efficiency will happen. There is no need to do a lot of research on that. We have proved the Indian housing sector has boomed because of the 7% or 6% interest rate 25-30 years back. So low cost finance is one thing. And if the second for Kerala, because we are in the down south, people have to come down south. Maybe it is a difficult thing because I am trying to woo the ESCOs in the north region, telling that, okay, I will give low cost finance at 4% interest rate. At 4% interest, because the Bureau of Energy Efficiency had given me some funds on State Energy Conservation Fund. I think 100% of the state have not spent this fund, not even 50%, because the condition is that it should be revolving. But since we are not able to identify a mode of revolving fund utilization, no SDA have spent that money. Only EMC has spent that money. Now we have come out with a scheme at 2% interest rate for public institutions, industries, buildings, and cooperatives, and 4% interest rate for private. So I told you, an ESCO coming, you can take 4% interest rate. But only thing, because since I am not a financial institution, I need some guarantee, and I know only BG, bank guarantee. So you give big BG bank guarantee and take 4% rate, and then you invest this money in the thing. So, but unfortunately, it is not coming. I think you have to help me in getting some 1 or 2 ESCOs in the state. Lot of good business, because as I mentioned in the Triple GI seminar in the morning, Kerala, the booming sector is tourism, healthcare, and IT, all in the building. And in the tourism, if you see, Kerala has got the number 1 in terms of numbers, 5-star hotels in this country. We have got about 46, 47 5-star hotels. And next to the Kerala is Maharashtra with 40 or 38. So we have got a lot of and these 5-star hotels, they do not want their air conditioning to be operated on by themselves. If some ESCO can come invest, do some energy efficiency thing and put some rooftop solar, run in the peak load and with battery storage, yes, it is a fantastic opportunity for the ESCOs. I am also running behind some ESCOs to do a project in the national capital. I have a Kerala house here in just near Jantar Mandir. I want to showcase this project in the national level. If somebody can come and help me with revamping all this air conditioning, cooling tower and things like that, yes, we are ready to support that.
Shantanu, there was one question directly on capacity building.
Who knows better than Balwant, I would say, in terms of the capacity at the state level. I haven't come across any plan of any state looking at capacity needs and how they plan to meet that. And I think it's a question of not valuing capacity and analysis. It's not a question of financial resources. Financial resources are available with, I would say, all states, but unless they start valuing the analysis and capacity to plan, capacity to undertake required studies, they will not invest in that capacity, and then obviously they will end up in making wrong decisions which will be costly in the long term. So I think that's the sad story, and the cost of those wrong decisions in the context of energy transition can be really severe, because it's going to be largely irreversible decisions. Lock-ins will be there in terms of wrong tariff policy, wrong kind of generation projects, wrong kind of concessions, promoting something which is not really viable in the long term, but just because it is fad of today, you start promoting, investing in it, give subsidy, but then that won't give any benefit to the state. So the mistakes are going to be far more costly in this dynamic energy transition scenario.
See, when the energy landscape is fast changing, the challenge for our policymakers, how fast we take decisions from the state government side. So if you have one person who is a policy expert in a SDA or SNA, in another case, it is a difficult aspect also, because you have to first convince him. If there is no person, then the consultant, to a great extent, he has the flexibility also. So capacity, in-house capacity building with, as he mentioned, with in-house people having a policy cell, then you put some 5 or 6 people, give them the salary, so it will be creating more problem. That also we need to understand.
Right. I'm conscious we have exceeded our time by a few minutes, and so I won't try and summarize. I also wanted to let all of you know that 2 speakers were joined online had left. They messaged us saying that they had to leave. So, but I did want to sort of acknowledge that there's been, I think, like Shantanu said, lots of positives, lots of positive stories coming from the states, despite having several legacy issues, despite having several of the challenges we've heard reiterated. Lots of positive stories that have coming out from the states. And I think the direction, both given at the global but also at the national level, is also pushing many of these actions. And we had at least 2 or 3 really interesting ideas come up around platforms to share best practices, for more partnerships, bilateral and regional partnerships between states and so on. And also, I think more need, I think, to focus more on the systematic capacity building. One interesting thing I didn't hear was issue of energy transition financing, though of course I think Mr. Rastogi brought it up just sort of. But usually, this is one of the things that a lot of people think this is the reason why states are not moving forward. And clearly, the availability of finance is not such a big part of it when you look at some of the other issues. And a lot of actions are being taken, and I think that puts us in a good space to move. So please join me in thanking our panelists.